In this episode, we'll take a look at SoundID Reference, which is basically a system for improving the quality of the sound you get out of your near-field monitors or speakers. Couple things. I'm coming from the point of view of someone who mixes sound for video, and that's really kind of the context that we're approaching this from in this video. First of all, what is Sonarworks SoundID Reference? Well, it is a measurement microphone and a software bundle that identifies acoustic issues with your room and applies an EQ curve to your signal chain to mitigate those issues. In other words, when you play your audio back, it's applying a correction to it so that you get the best possible sound for your particular room with your particular monitors. The result is audio playback for mixing that's clearer and more focused. And by more focused, we mean the ability to hear each frequency range with clarity without any one range sort of masking or muddying up the others. Now, one question I know we're going to get, can this take the place of acoustic treatment? And from my perspective, the answer is no. This is a complement to that. In fact, the way this works from my perspective is you would apply all of the bass traps and broadband traps to your room, and then this will actually help you measure and see where you're at. And from there, it will apply any remaining correction that needs to take place to get you the best possible sound so you can actually hear what may be working well and what's not working so well with your mixes. How does it work? It comes with a measurement microphone and a license for the SoundID Reference software, which runs on both Mac and PC. And what you'll need is an audio interface connected to your computer. And connected to that audio interface will be your speakers or near-field monitors, as well as the measurement microphone. The software then basically walks you through every step to take. It helps you set your proper gain on the microphone. It helps you set the proper level so that it can make the measurements. And then it guides you to take around 39 different measurements in your listening space with the microphone. It has you move the microphone around. And from there, it measures the frequencies that are too prominent and not prominent enough, as well as how long these frequencies ring in the room or how long they persist once they're played back. From these measurements, it tailors a corrective EQ curve specific to your room and your monitors and your whole setup. Then from there, you can take this corrective curve and it can be used in two different ways. Well, number one, you can use a desktop app, which applies that corrective curve to all the sound that your computer plays back, no matter what you're using, Spotify, playing back from the operating system, whatever it may be. Or if you prefer, you can use a plugin in your digital audio workstation app so that when you play back any audio from your DAW, that will go through the corrective EQ before it's played back. Now, this is not permanent. You can turn it off anytime you want to. If for some reason you like to listen to your music with a lot more bass, you can always turn this off and do that if you prefer. It also has presets for the most common studio headphones as well. So if you're doing a good bit of mixing in headphones, that is an option as well. We're not going to cover that in detail here. It works differently. You're just basically applying a preset to your headphone playback, and it's not doing all the measurements like we did in the room. But if enough of you are interested, we could potentially do an episode on that in the future as well. So what did this do for us? Did it do anything, and was it helpful? Well, you can see in the measurements here that we had way too much bass in our room. And just to give you a little bit of background, I'm using Focal Solo 6 beryllium monitors, set of two of them. And then I also have the matching Sub 6 subwoofer, which is an 11-inch subwoofer in my room. It's a small room. It's basically a bedroom in my home that's been converted into an edit studio, even with all the acoustic panels and the bass traps already positioned in the room. So here's the corrective EQ curve that compensates for that. And here's what it sounds like on both music and dialogue, just so you can get a sense. We used an ORTF recording here with some Rode TF5 microphones. So let's get through that part really quickly. I went ahead and put the summary up at the front. You saw that already. If you want to dig into the details, go back to that and pause, read through it. That'll give you my impressions overall of the 60C. I think it's a fantastic light. Here are some of the color metrics or the photometrics. I went ahead and put the summary up at the front. You saw that already. If you want to dig into the details, go back to that and pause, read through it. That'll give you my impressions overall of the 60C. I think it's a fantastic light. Here are some of the color metrics or the photometrics. Now, the price of this is $299 US at the time of this review. And another question I think that a lot of people will ask is, are there any alternatives to this? There are. I think probably the most common is going to be Room EQ Wizard, which is actually a free app. But to do that, you'd probably also want to get a measurement microphone. Behringer makes one, I believe. It's less than $100. And then you got to figure out how to use Room EQ Wizard. And Room EQ Wizard is an amazing app, don't get me wrong, but it's pretty complicated. And I've spent a lot of time trying to get it to work and understand how it works. And I'm not sure that I completely mastered it. So if you're that kind of person, if you love diving in and figuring those things out, by all means, that's another option out there. But for those of us that want to get back to work mixing as quickly as possible, I think the $299 US makes sense. So overall, is it worth it? And I think my opinion is yes. When I first got my subwoofer, I spent a lot of time trying to kind of tune it by ear and getting it set just the way I wanted. I pulled out Room EQ Wizard. I have an older measurement microphone that I was using. Again, that Behringer, it has never been calibrated, so it was all kind of a messy operation, and I don't think it got exactly where I wanted it to get. But having SoundID just made that process really, really easy. And what's interesting is that I was worried it was going to take away too much bass and everything was going to start to sound thin. But to my ears, what it actually did is that it pulled the bass down just a little bit, because it was kind of overwhelming the room a little bit. So it pulled that down just enough so that everything else just suddenly became much clearer. It also applied some other minor changes to the rest of the frequencies, but it looked like my acoustic panels were doing a pretty good job up there. So there weren't any major anomalies up there. But overall, I can hear the mid and the highs much better now, and the bass doesn't sound quite so woofy or kind of overwhelming. It doesn't like shake the whole room anymore. It plays back in a much more controlled fashion and in a really pleasant way. So not only is it pleasant, but it also makes it so that I can hear everything better and make better mix decisions. People talk about having perfectly flat monitors, and I don't know that that's ever even really practical. But I think what is important is having a setup where you don't have any one frequency range that's really out of whack and kind of messing up all of the others as well, making your ability to hear all of the others really problematic. And that's what I think SoundID Reference addresses pretty well, is it can help you identify any major issues that you have and address some of those and bring them back under control. Now, again, this doesn't take the place of acoustic treatment, so I think if I didn't have the acoustic treatment in here, it would have a much bigger job to do, and there's only so much that you can do with this type of thing. But if you need to just kind of bring that final piece on, I think this is a great complement to any cases where you already have acoustic treatment in your room and you just want to finish it off. So there's a look at SoundID Reference from Sonarworks. I hope that was helpful for you. If you have any questions, go ahead and leave those down below. And if you've not already subscribed, make sure you do that, and we'll be sure to get you more great videos on how to improve your lighting and sound for video. Talk to you soon.